I mean, it's nice to have all those maternal immunization guidance in one place. ACOG has been in the business of maternal immunization guidelines for about 15 years or so. And originally it was just influenza because that was the only vaccine we really recommended during pregnancy and that became an issue with the 2009 pandemic. Shortly after that, we added pertussis. We had the Tdap booster to the maternal immunization schedule. And then now we have two newer vaccines. We have the RSV vaccine that was approved 2 or 3 years ago and COVID vaccination. So really it got everything together in one place. And so there have also been some more subtle changes. You ask about nuance. We had a hepatitis A outbreak in many cities just a few years ago. There's new hepatitis B guidance for adult vaccination, and there's a fair amount going on. And of course, there's a measles outbreak, and ACOG also has robust resources for that outbreak as well. Measles is a little unique. The MMR vaccine is not a vaccine we give during pregnancy because it is a live vaccine, but most other vaccines are safe during pregnancy. And so we try to give some broad guidance about those particular vaccines, including the ones that are recommended during most pregnancies. I think pregnant people are really going to look to their providers, their OB/GYN doctors for guidance around these, and this will put it all in one place. So, we're well, maybe I'm being too optimistic, but based on the calendar, respiratory season should be winding down shortly. And so we'll be thinking less about influenza and RSV, but the pertussis, the Tdap vaccine we give year round in every pregnancy. And then ACOG and other organizations will probably look at their recommendations later in 2026 to update them for the next respiratory season. I think one of the changes when I think back of what's happened the past 2 or 3 years, of course, the RSV vaccine is new, but even since last fall, when ACOG updated their guidelines about the RSV vaccine, there's been a ton of nice publications about the effectiveness and safety of that vaccine. I mean, I think that's exceeded our expectations in all kinds of good ways. So RSV is a good one to talk about because it's so darn common. 1 or 2% of all newborns are going to be hospitalized this time of the year with RSV. At least that's how it was before we had these great prevention measures. So most parents are going to have experience with their own children or niece or nephew being in the emergency room or being hospitalized, or maybe even something worse with RSV. I'm the father of a premature child, and it's been a few decades since she was born. But we have a fair number of parents who have premature children, and they get warnings about that. Now we have options with the monoclonal antibodies, or more options, I should say. I think the other kind of you were talking about nuance points, is that we have three things in our toolkit to prevent RSV. We have two monoclonal antibodies plus maternal immunization. So we have a lot of things going to prevent a disease that's very common in infants and newborns. I think that's true, and that recommendation has some history as well. One of the members of the ACOG committee, Dr. Munoz, did a very nice study 15 years ago, a prospective randomized study that showed the safety of that vaccine. At the same time, we were having an outbreak of pertussis in the United States. There were several deaths in California of newborns due to pertussis. And so those guidelines were adopted very quickly to give the birth dose, I'm sorry, not the birth dose, the dose during pregnancy. And again, I think it exceeded our expectations. I think most of the data that you'll see from the United States and other places show about a 90% prevention against whooping cough or pertussis. And again, there's a group called Grandparents for Vaccines. If you ask your grandparents about whooping cough, they're gonna know about it. So that's another vaccine preventable disease that a lot of people have experience with. We were due for an update and maybe even a little overdue because we usually try to do it every 2 years. I think it's been about 2.5 years. So I think there needed to be an update. And I think we mentioned earlier that there's new hepatitis vaccines, new recommendations, new pneumococcal vaccines, and some other nuanced things that we needed to get out. I think it is a good idea to talk about these vaccines every few years. Certainly, in 2 to 3 years, we might even have a fifth vaccine for Group B strep. There's a phase 3 trial going on. And so there's always a lot to talk about in the maternal immunization space.